This is Ken Pyle with VOD TV. We're with Paul Maxwell of MediaBiz.
Right.
Paul, it's great to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
And I want to ask you, in your latest issue, you made a comment about the top 10 MVPDs should have a different regulatory environment than the members we see here of the ACA.
I think that's true. Actually, Steve Efros, who's a longtime commentator in the business too, actually today has a column in CableFax making much the same point. And we both took a look at it, I think, very differently and without even talking or colluding or any of that, about following how broadcasters are thought of, like top 25, top 50, top 100, top 200 and stuff, and thinking the regulatory regime should be different for each of those classes.
So that has some big implications, probably changes to the 92 Act, probably 96 Act.
Yes, it would have a lot of changes to all that. I mean, it's an entirely different way of thinking about it, but it ain't 1992. And it ain't 1996. And if you look at how the different companies have evolved and how the different ways of business are happening, I mean, it's not the same anymore. In 1992, that was just the first, kind of at the end of the first wave of growing a whole lot of new networks and stuff. And the regulatory regime then just, it was really different. All the companies were different. And this is one example of where the government decided to back an industry and gave, another revenue source to broadcasters just to save that local over the air. Right. So look what they do now. They're taking a lot of money out of the pocket of cable subs.
Well, that's right, and they're not, the local aspect of it isn't necessarily local anymore, right?
Well, it depends. I mean, some are, some aren't.
Right.
But, Mexico today just introduced a bill to make must carry the rule and not allow over the air to be paid for.
Interesting.
Yes.
Well, and that brings me to another point you made in your latest issue, and that is the idea of GCI buying some broadcast stations in Alaska.
Well, I thought that was great.
Yeah.
That might be the only way to keep them alive, I mean, that's a good thing, but the other broadcasters are having a hissy fit.
Well, I could see it could change everything, because what is to stop GCI from saying, we'll just, we'll still broadcast over the air, but we can use the rest of that bandwidth for something else, right?
Absolutely. But they may, they can sell that bandwidth like a lot of others,
right. Use it to get to customers they couldn't get to otherwise.
Exactly. Actually, a friend of mine, Preston Padden, is running the coalition that's looking at selling their spectrum. And that's actually, talking to him over dinner is when I thought of the top 25, top 50, because he's a longtime broadcaster, of course, worked for Disney and Murdoch, both. Yeah.
Well, and that does lead to the whole idea too. Is Google just published their database of the white spectrum, and it's really interesting. I think it's one of the best representations of where what it actually looks like. And rural areas are a lot different than cities.
Very different. I mean, these are different businesses, different economics, different penetration levels, different everything. And regulating them the same way they regulate Comcast and Time Warner just doesn't make a damn bit of sense.
So the ACA as a group, do you think they'll be able to kind of, send that message? Will they want to send that message?
They've been doing it for 20 years. And it's much the same message, and they're making headway, but it's slow. And change is hard, and something radical needs to happen, and maybe some of these radical things are happening.
Well, it's definitely exciting. So you've seen a lot. You had 43 years in the cable business.
Yes.
And you asked a question of Mr. Egan, who was your cable mentor? So I want to ask you that question.
Well, I got blind luck. I had Bill Daniels and Bill Bresnan as really, really good friends back in the beginning of when I wandered into the first publication I worked for. And they, just made a big difference in my life.
Well, and you've made a big difference in everyone else's life. So, Paul, I appreciate your time here.
Well, thanks. I don't know if I've done that. Thank you. I appreciate that.